This is the Hype Squad with Charli McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. What's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. Today we have Searcy Kelly on, and she is a master esthetician, entrepreneur, wife, and mother of three. She also has a podcast called Your Besthetician, where she unpacks tips and trends from her 20 years experience in the med spa industry. Searcy is your esthetician and bestie all rolled into one. Welcome, Searcy.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. I'm just going to put this on Do Not Disturb real quick. So I have been in your office for what feels like, I've been seeing you now for a couple of years. I see you and your mom also. So that's one thing I'll add to. Your mom works in the same business with you, and she is what do you call it?
An injector. She's a
injector.
retired anesthesiologist and now spends her time doing aesthetic medicine.
I love it.
So,
she has that awesome little throne where she does it. It's so cute. So give me a little bit of background before we start digging into esthetician stuff and asking more about skincare. Give me like a rundown on how you got into this world. 20 years experience is a long time.
So when I was in high school, my mom, as an anesthesiologist, started injecting on the side just for family and friends, and was the medical director at a med spa here in Auburn called Renew. And that was back in the 90s. And so I was around the industry back then and never really thought I would have anything to do with it. And then went to college, majored in business, and graduated and still had no clue what I wanted to do, which is a lot of people's story, I think. And she said, well, why don't you become an esthetician? And I said, okay. And so I went to esthetician school right after college and have just been doing it ever since. And it's so fun. And now I have to pinch myself sometimes to realize that I'm working alongside my mom. It's taken a while for us to get to this point, her retiring from anesthesia, me making my way back to Auburn. And we just have the best time.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, you got the business degree and now you're running a business, a very successful business.
It didn't hurt to have a business degree, but I probably would have gone more of the nursing route like you did had I known that this is what I was going to do forever.
Yeah. So I was just having this conversation with Rachel this morning about still not knowing what she wants to do. And she's 25. I went back to nursing school. I think I was 26 when I started. And I had multiple jobs with my first degree, which was communication and psychology with like a little bit of a marketing tinge. But yeah, you don't know what you want to do, especially until you get out in the world and figure it all out. So how long did it take you to do esthetician and start diving in?
So back when I was in esthetician school, the state of Alabama required 1,500 hours. So I basically went to school 9 to 5 for 10 months. Now Alabama has cut that in half and it doesn't take quite as long. And they're more on par with other states. I think it's more like 750.
Yeah, the nursing thing, just since you brought it up, like I only actually worked as a nurse for a couple of years until we had our daughter, and then I stayed home with her, but I keep that license up. So it's like always a backup plan. But you've got a business degree you could fall back on too if you ever needed to.
We'll see. You never know.
Yeah. But I love that. I love that you're working with your mom and you guys have a successful business. I can't imagine. I say all the time, like working with my partner would be really hard. I can't imagine how fulfilling, but also could be stressful to work with your parent as well. But I love that for you guys. So I want to dive into the fun, juicy stuff with skincare because I've done several things with you so far, and I can't remember the names of them. But I want to go into like, I called last year my year of skin. I don't know if I ever told you that, but like every year I have like a theme of something I'm focusing on. Last year was definitely with skin. And I did some laser treatments with you for sunspots that were not super comfortable. What do you remember what the name of it? Which one did I do?
Our Elite IQ laser and basically just zapped brown spots.
So how does that work for anyone listening that doesn't like? What are some other names for that too?
So there's the BBL, which is broadband light. Most people have heard of IPL, which is intense pulsed light. There's a machine out there that's pretty popular called a Moxie laser. There's one called a cool peel laser. So basically, the chromophore, or what the laser is drawn to, is pigment. And so in the case of laser hair removal, the best candidate for laser hair removal is going to be somebody with pale skin and dark hair, because the laser is attracted to the pigment in the hair and it
Mhm.
kills the hair follicle. There's more advanced lasers now, and ours is one of them, where we can get blonde hair, but definitely the best candidate is always going to be somebody with pale skin and dark hair. But with pigment, obviously, we're targeting pigment. And so the chromophore for the laser is pigment, and it's going to go in and zap that pigment. And the esthetician or the laser technician has to put in the settings just so that we're not harming the surrounding skin, and we're just targeting what we're wanting to destroy. And the laser goes in and it targets that pigment deep down in the dermis, and it comes up to the surface and gets even darker and then just flakes away.
That's
So,
insane.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Lasers are fun.
It's so cool, and I'm like, how did anyone ever figure that out in the first place? I mean, with hair removal and with sunspots, like it's wild. And I could tell, I couldn't tell it immediately. I think I did like 2 or 3 treatments, but I definitely a couple of months after was like, "Oh, wow, they are all gone." I did not
Mhm.
realize it. And what's crazy is the only place I could really see them is on these damn iPhone cameras, like the front, like the selfie. Oh my gosh, like your skin looks totally different on that camera. So I just refuse to think that that's really what it looks like. But that's where I could tell the big difference was just the sun damage all over was much, much less.
Selfies and pictures we take of ourselves. And I know this is getting into what we were going to talk about with
Mm-hmm.
young girls, but we are so critical of ourselves in pictures.
Mm,
And I think that just like a picture, if you're in a beautiful sunset or a beautiful the Grand Canyon or wherever, that picture is not going to capture what you're seeing right then.
mm-hmm.
And I just think that like God doesn't create anybody that's ugly. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we nitpick ourselves like that from a picture, that's not the whole story, and that's not the whole picture. Like, what other people see on a daily basis of you is so different than what we're looking at in a picture. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just a sad state that our society's in right now, because we look at
So
pictures of
real
ourselves all
though.
day long.
I have chill bumps thinking about it. I had a client in here last week and she was saying, talking really negatively about herself. She's 18 and talking about her selfie camera and how she hates her face and all this kind of stuff. And so one of the things that we did is I showed her what I looked like on my selfie camera, which was very different than what she like saw looking. And then we went into the mirror and we both looked at each other in the mirror and I'm like, "Does this look like what you see my face looking like right
Mhm.
now?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Exactly. That camera is picking up all of these imperfections, which is not something that anyone else sees, but
Mhm.
you are like over analyzing it and thinking that it's something that you can fix or change. Even if you have like great makeup on and you look in that selfie camera, it's
We
terrible.
just pick ourselves apart.
It's terrible. And then you feel like you have to use these filters to cover everything up, and it's a
Mhm.
vicious cycle.
The
But
filters.
before we did, because we're definitely going to circle back to this, but I want to ask you, and I've done other treatments and stuff with you before, like micro needling and stuff like that, which was also really cool. But what are some of the things that you would recommend for anyone like 35 and up who's like starting to like take better care of their skin and worry more about sun damage? What are some of the products that you would tell them to start using?
Well, definitely 80% of great skin comes from what you're doing at home with your skin. So you want to make sure that you're on a medical grade skincare line, and they're not cheap. It's a
Mhm.
big investment to do that, but that's 80% of your results. And so you want to make sure you're just like exercise, you're doing the daily washing your face, using the right products every single day, not missing a morning, not missing a night, just like you would do with your exercise and your
Mhm.
diet if you were trying to lose some weight.
Yeah.
So definitely investing in a good skincare regimen. And then microneedling is very popular. It's low downtime. It doesn't hurt. It's going to give you a great glow to your skin. It's great for all skin types. So, darker skin types to lighter skin types. It's great for acne scars, any type of textural
Mhm.
abnormalities. So,
So like pores, pore size, if you were trying to lessen your pore size,
mhm,
make them appear smaller, would microneedling be good for that?
microneedling would be what you do.
Okay, cool. Let me
And
just
there's regular microneedling, there's radiofrequency microneedling. Radiofrequency microneedling is a little more intense. It hurts a little bit more. It's a little more expensive. But then again, if you want to look like a Lamborghini, then
you gotta get that detail.
yep.
You sure do.
So,
I did both versions of microneedling, and yeah, the RF one was pretty intense.
mhm.
And then when I did the lower intensity one, I'm like, is this even gonna do anything? Like it feels like you're not doing anything right now. Um, but I really enjoyed the microneedling. So, like vitamin C serum or retinol, anything like that, you recommend using stuff like that?
Absolutely. Everybody needs to be using retinol. As we age, your skin cells lose their ability to turn over. So it's like if you can picture the sand on the seashore when the waves aren't washing it away, it gets rough and dry and uneven. And as
Mhm.
we age, your skin cells build up and they don't shed as quickly. So it's the same thing. You get rough, dry um, skin. It's not as luminous. So we're constantly trying to accelerate your cell turnover. And that's what retinol does. And that's why you get peely and flaky with it
Mhm.
because we're accelerating your cell turnover. So definitely retinol for anybody in their mid 20s and older. Vitamin C helps fight off free radical damage from the environment. So that's important. Um, and also hydration using some high powered hydrators.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm trying to think. What's the other thing that is it tretinoin?
Mhm.
Tretinoin that's
And
kind of like
that's a
retinol.
yeah, that's vitamin A. That's a retinoid, and so it's a little stronger than retinols, but everybody needs to be on some type of vitamin A derivative, whether it be retinol, retinoid, tretinoin,
Mhm.
anything like that.
Yeah, and if anyone listening has not done retinol before or any of those different versions, like you will peel. You have to work up a tolerance to it, but then
Mhm.
once you get to that sweet spot of being able to use it every day, every other day without peeling, don't stop.
Yeah.
Because if you stop, then you have to cycle back onto it like all over again. It does not like it, you have to start from scratch. And so that was one thing I've had to learn. It's just like that's my priority. Like come back to that every single time because it makes a huge difference. And it helps, at least in my experience, it helped a lot with breakouts
Mhm.
too. Pore size, all of that stuff. So yeah.
Tretinoin was originally developed for acne patients because it goes down deep in your pore and it dislodges everything and the acne causing bacteria. And then they saw that those patients had great skin. So
Wow. That's
that's how they
wild.
figured out that one.
So, okay, one of the things we talked about this before, but one of the things I wanted to touch on while you were here, specifically about skincare, is
Mhm.
like this new trend with these young girls and being hyper aware and into skincare. And I don't mean just like skincare in general, but like anti aging for teenagers, essentially, like super young adults.
Mhm.
And I mentioned to you before we started recording, my niece is 18. Yeah, she's 18 now. And for Christmas, she asked me specifically for like a drunk elephant skincare. It had vitamin C in it. I can't remember all of the details of it, but it was an anti aging set.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, and I didn't say anything, I got it for her. That's what she wanted. But I remember thinking, I was not concerned about any of this when I was 18 whatsoever. And so, and then like once that sparked that thought, then I started picking up on the other trends that was seeing like on TikTok or Instagram or whatever about them
Mhm.
being hyper aware and focused on it. So, what have you seen from your perspective? I know you have a teenage daughter too. Where did this all come from?
A little bit of it has to do with all these celebrities and all of these role models that our kids and girls look up to. Every single one of them has their own skincare line that they're
Mm.
promoting. So that has a lot to do with it. And then, of course, social media and TikTok. There's always somebody promoting some type of product. And then also, just like we were talking about, they're more insecure than ever. I think we've
Mhm.
always been insecure and into our looks, but it's just at an all-time high. And what to do about it?
Mhm.
I don't know. I have a lot of moms that'll bring their girls in and say, all right, she's got 100 different things. Can you just tell her what's important and what's not important? She won't listen to me. And so that's what I do. And
Mhm.
because you want them to wash their face and you want
Mhm.
them to care about their skin. It's just crossed a line that nobody's ever seen before. And it's a little crazy. My daughter, yeah, she goes in her bathroom, and a lot of times, like, she won't spend the night out because it's not a priority to those girls. And like, she goes to bed at 10 o'clock and she's going to wash her face and do all of her stuff. And, um, and I'm proud of her for that,
Mhm.
but it has reached an all-time high of ridiculousness with the
Mhm.
amount of skincare that girls are obsessed with. And just like anything, I'm sure it's going to ebb and flow. There'll be something else that comes along, and but it comes from us as moms too. I mean,
Yeah,
all of
that's
us
what I
are
was
more
thinking.
concerned than ever, and so why wouldn't our daughters be more concerned than ever about it?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, I pay more attention to my skincare now than I ever did before. And so, if my daughter was a teenager, she would pick up on that and probably recreate the same thing. And plus, you're an esthetician. So, I'm sure that is hyper aware for her as well.
Mhm.
I can remember when I was a teenager and high school and college and all of that stuff, it was like if I even like got a face wipe and took my makeup off before I went to sleep at night, I was winning. Like that was a win, right? But I wasn't doing it the right way, God forbid. I mean, it was like killing my face with whatever the
Sea breeze.
exfoliator, well, sea breeze was the second part, and it burns so good, right? Like if it didn't burn, it wasn't doing anything, but I would, the yellow and the blue, I can't remember the what different versions, but always sea breeze. So funny that you brought that up. St. Ives scrub, like apricot scrub, I would just like kill my face with that stuff and then burn with that astringent. And yeah, I mean, and whatever I bought was at a drugstore. So I love that you're at least educating them, and I love that their moms are bringing them in and saying, like, look, if we're going to obsess over it, let's at least obsess over the right
Mhm.
thing. So that's a great point. I can remember watching a TikTok in the past 6 to 10 months, probably, where the girl was in college and she had one of those little mini fridges with all of her skincare. And it was like an hour of a skincare. And I was sucked into it. It was one of those ASMRs where she like closes, those
The nails and
intoxicating
everything.
little videos. And I'm watching it in a trance, and I'm also thinking, "Oh my god, I need to do that." And I am a grown ass woman watching this teenager and still feeling sucked into it. I can't imagine what
They
it's
suck
like.
you in, don't
Oh
they?
my god, they do. But it's lucrative, right? It's like, oh, and then all the celebrities, like all the Kardashians and all of these other people who are so common on social media have all of these skincare routines. And so it's like a double-edged sword. I wish I would have taken care of my skin better back then. I wouldn't be so hyper focused on it now, but I don't know. I mean, I guess there are worse things to be hyper
There
focused
are.
on.
It's just when it messes with their body image and their self-worth that it becomes a problem.
Mhm.
So as long as that can be kept in check, I mean, I think women we've been putting things on our faces as young girls
Mhm.
since the beginning of time. It's just at an all-time high. Um, I have a mom friend who makes her daughter spend her own money on her skincare. So that's an
Mm.
easy no-brainer way to keep it in check.
Mhm.
If you want this, I'll buy you like soap to keep you clean and smelling good and deodorant, but
Mhm.
all this other stuff, it's got to be your own money. Unless it's something like acne where
Yeah.
they truly need help with it.
Mhm. Yeah. I think too, like, and I don't even know, is there even research on like young girls using some of these
They don't need to be using
harsh
retinol as a
products?
teenager unless they've got some pretty chronic acne,
Mhm.
cystic acne. No, they don't need to be using.
Well, and retinol is one of those things that you can't use for sure if you're pregnant, right?
Mhm.
And so that's another thing to like, not that these young girls plan on getting pregnant, but that's a whole nother thing in and of
Just means it's pretty
itself,
strong.
is it's doing a lot to your body. And there's some, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was some medication. I remember girls when I was younger would get put on birth control for acne to like calm down
Mhm.
their acne. But then there was some, is it Accutane, where
Mhm.
you had to be on birth control because of the side effects that would happen if you got pregnant on accident. So, I mean, that's just like a reminder of how strong these products actually are
Yeah.
to be used on a really young body. Obviously, like if you have severe cystic acne, like you just got to pick your evil type of
Mhm.
thing. But and it messes with your self-esteem, like we were talking earlier too. Like
Mhm.
there wasn't I read something the other day, like my generation is the last generation to know what it was like before social media because there wasn't anything when I was in middle school, high school. So I'm 37. I'm an elder millennial. And I don't, when Facebook came out, there was MySpace in high school. When Facebook came out, it was only for university
Yeah.
students. And so not everyone had access to it. But before that, there was MySpace. But in middle school, there was nothing. There was chat rooms and stuff like that, but there was nothing with photos or any sort of
Oh,
filters or
yeah, you
any of
couldn't send a
that kind of
picture.
stuff. No, absolutely. I mean, it was like pushing the number 3 times to get to the letter
Mhm.
type of thing. And I struggled even before all of that, like,
Mhm.
and everyone did. And so the amount of struggling now is so intensified with social media and these cameras,
Mhm.
right? And the filters blow my mind on a regular basis about like, and I'll see someone that they'll post something and sometimes at the top it'll show you the filter that they're using.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh well, it can't be that strong because I know what this girl looks like. And then I'll put it on and I'm like, holy shit, that doesn't look anything like me.
Mhm.
And it's not to me talking about that's not to shame the person who's using it, but it's like you get really distorted on what your own face actually looks like. So of course you're going to be disappointed when you look at a regular selfie camera or in the mirror because it doesn't look like that filtered version of you. So, how old is your teenager?
She's 15.
So, yeah, that's the thick of it, right?
She
At least the age and maybe the friends and stuff like that.
I just have to, when I see that she's on her phone too much, be like, "Hey," I mean, we let our kids have social media, or the
Mhm.
one kid right now that has social media, we let her do it, and she's had it for a long time. But there's so many good things on social media that she gets out of it also, and I
Mhm.
think it can be used for good, and there are a lot of good things. Now, how do you make sure that your kid only has access to the good stuff? I don't know. I wanna say it's just raising them right and praying over your kids when they're young and instilling the right values, but that's not a no fail way to do it
Mhm.
either.
You can't save them. A part of raising kids to be responsible humans out in the world is like letting them fail to a certain
Yeah.
degree. And my daughter is 7 and I literally had a moment this morning where she went to her summer camp program and didn't want to go because she said the boys weren't nice to her. And when I heard that, I immediately wanted to go pick her up and bring her home and screw all of those little boys. You don't have to ever go back. And then I had to check myself. Like, I can't bail her out of every moment when people aren't nice to her. She has to figure out. And so I have to reinforce like, if people aren't nice to us, we don't play with them, period.
Yeah.
We're not friends with people who aren't nice to us. And just continuing to like remind her and myself, because I'm also teaching myself that at the same time.
Mhm.
But you can't save them. And it's a really hard, even with a 7-year-old, I'm nowhere near 15, but I'm already having to learn that. I can't imagine how exponentially harder that's going to get.
It's just, I mean, that's what the Lord, I think, does with us. We're not shielded from everything in this life. We just have to learn from it and pray and hope for the best. And so that's what we got to do. We can't shield our kids from everything. We
Mhm.
can't shield them from social media. It's gonna be there.
Mhm.
Um, and they need it. We need it for
Mhm.
stuff. Like,
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that you physically, like, you cannot do on a daily basis without social media, and that's the
Mhm.
sad fact of it.
Yeah, it's just when Sailor was little, I was really adamant about her not having an iPad. And she would have access to something to watch a movie if we were on long car trips, but outside of that, like, it never would I have let her sit at a restaurant and look at an app. Like, I just felt like I'm failing if I do that.
Mhm.
And then I was humbled really quickly by that, right? Like, it does not mean I'm a failure. Like, you get into your mind, especially with your first, where it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do all of these things. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna be that kind of
Homemade baby
parent."
food and everything.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the works, right? Then she got to kindergarten and they're doing everything on an iPad. And this poor child doesn't know what the hell to do because she's never been on an iPad. And so I'm having to tell her teachers, like, give her some grace. She's not used to the iPad. Of course, she doesn't want to sit there and do, whatever this is that you guys are doing because to her, it's not entertainment. So then I had to start bringing the iPad out and we had to start doing like learning activities and stuff on it to get her more. So it totally backfired. I thought I was doing her a favor and it ended up being detrimental in a lot of ways. And it's like their phones, they have to have them. It's how they are in touch with the world.
It really is, and who knows, like, the people that run Google, the ones that are on their phones the most might be the ones that are gonna rule the world someday, so
Hmm.
mhm,
Yeah, they have to learn how to do it. Like
mhm,
everything is computer based or social media based. And if you have a product that you ever want to sell, you're going to have to be on social media of some kind.
mhm.
Like it's not I read something today, I think it was, where it said it's not social media, it's social marketing now. Like it's not even
Yeah,
it is because if you have a
yeah,
product, you not only are selling yourself, but you're selling your product and you're wanting people to get to know you. And I have had like a crash course in that over the last year. It's like, how comfortable do I want to be doing that? And I will say too, like, I remember when I first started coming to see you, and your Instagram is so great. You do all these fun reels. And I remember telling you,
thanks.
I have to get into this. I have to get more comfortable. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but something to the effect of, you're never going to be comfortable. Like, it's not comfortable doing this.
Mhm.
Like, I feel silly. I feel ridiculous, but people like it. And I held on to that. And it's okay if I feel ridiculous every single time I do it, but it's part of the game, right? I
It's
mean,
part of it.
yeah.
I was at dinner, with a bunch of friends over Christmas, and one of the ladies pulled out her phone and she was showing everybody how ridiculous this certain person was promoting their product, da 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 da. Da, and I was just sitting there thinking, that's what I do like every day.
But they're looking at it.
But they're looking at
They're
it.
looking at it and they're hearing the message, and it's like that old saying, like, bad press is good press or whatever it is. Like, I don't remember exactly how it goes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
people are still talking about it.
Hmm.
And even if they're hating on it, you're still talking about it. And so there is like this weird element of, I don't want to be made fun of, but the people who need to hear me will hear me. Like, and I'm only talking to them type
Hmm.
of thing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons I wanted to do the podcast because I thought this would be so much easier to talk about what I do or to get to know me versus like reels and stuff. Cause I feel like I'm just doing the same thing on repeat. I wish I had like because you do so good with your product,
Oh, thank you.
like
I
sharing the
appreciate it.
product because that's a huge part of your business. Huge part.
Yeah. And I think too, it's just another platform. Some
Mm-hmm.
people listen to podcasts, some people um, watch reels all day.
Mm-hmm. Or
Nobody watches
TikTok.
commercials.
No, they don't. And now sometimes I feel like I see reels as commercials on like
Mhm,
Hulu and stuff like
mhm.
that. Have you seen any of those?
My daughter was sitting watching the Tonys last night on her phone.
Uh-huh.
She loves Broadway. And while it had commercials, she minimized the screen so that she could scroll through her social media. I was like, "Oh, Lord." What?
I have done that. I'm ashamed to admit I have
She
totally
said,
done
"But I
that.
don't like the commercials." I said, "I know. That's a
But
lot
they
going
don't know what to
on."
do with commercials. My 7-year-old, if something has commercials, she's like, what, what do I do? Make it stop, make it go away. And I'm like, oh God, bless her. Bless her. So talk to me about your podcasts
Mm.
because I love how you set up. So tell me how long they are. What do you typically share on your podcast? Give me those details.
I share anything that's trending in skincare or the med spa industry or anything that someone has brought up to me that they want to hear more about. I'll research it and share what I've found. And my episodes are usually no longer than 15 minutes
Mhm.
because that's kind of my limit. I don't have any more to
Mhm.
share after that. And myself, when I'm driving around town, I have a short commute. And so 15 minutes is about all I can usually get in. And so I figure my listeners are like me and that's what they'll listen to.
I feel like 15 minutes is perfect for so many reasons. I wish I could make the podcast when I do them alone, they're like 15, 20 minutes max,
Hmm.
but with a guest on, they always get longer. And nobody listens for the most part to the entire thing. Sometimes they do, but they're like making it faster or whatever it may be. But then I'll cut little snippets out of it and I'll use it for social media.
Hmm.
But 15 minutes, especially for skincare, because it's like I want to know all the details. And after 15 minutes, unless you're doing multiple products, like that's perfect.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to share that because I thought it's so easily digestible what you're talking about because of the time frame and how you're researching the products that you're talking about. So it's perfect for anyone who is curious, and they're all listed by like what the topic is. So you could go and you could look and you could say, okay, this is something I want to learn about. I only need a couple of minutes. It's not a big deal.
Hmm.
So I love that. How did it
Yeah.
feel to start a podcast?
It was overwhelming at first, like learning all the platforms and how to record and how to upload and how to download, and then the cover art and doing an intro. And um, all of that for me was a little overwhelming.
Hmm.
I think you maybe did it a little better than I did, but it's a process.
It is a process. So you were one of the first women I went to asking about podcasts because I'm like, I don't know where to start. Like I've decided I'm going to do it, but I don't know where to start. And you sent me the template that you use, which was super helpful. The only difference is mine was going to have video. And so I was talking to another woman too, who was a friend of mine and does video. There's not a huge difference in it, but there's so many options when you go to
Yeah.
start one. So many different hosting platforms and recording stuff. Like it is overwhelming, but at this like stage in the game, I feel like they have really made it as easy as possible. It's just like
Mhm.
creating this routine, if you will,
Consistency.
of continuing to record and all of that stuff is I don't know. For me, like I'll get really excited about something and I'll be super like focused on it. And then that focus and excitement kind of wears down and I have to really fall back on a routine. And so that's been the biggest thing for me. Um, so yeah, but I love being able to like sit here and talk to women and have conversations that are meaningful, helpful for me, educational for me too. And it's like a
Mhm.
double win type
You've
of
had some
scenario.
great topics. I really enjoyed
Oh,
listening. When I
thanks.
was driving to Birmingham the other day, I was like, I'm going to listen to Charlie
I
the whole time.
appreciate that. I
And it was
know.
great.
I cannot wait for you to come back because there's so many other things that we need to talk about that I think will be great subjects. But I thought skincare obviously was a great place to start because you know so much about it. Um, so, one of the things we have to do before you leave me today is to do our hype list.
Okay.
So, the hype list for anyone who's listening who's not familiar with it, it is a list that I have a lot of clients do where you list all of your achievements and then you list all the obstacles that you overcame in order to achieve them. So, I would love to hear one share from you, an achievement and an obstacle. It can be about anything we talked about or just something totally random, but something that you can brag about.
My biggest achievement is my marriage. Definitely.
I love
I mean,
that.
it's a daily win
I love that.
most days. And I guess the biggest obstacle I've overcome, um, I had an eating disorder in high school. That was a big one. And again, that's a daily one also. So yeah.
Both of those I could not agree more with. Like I feel like those are on my list for sure. Um I say a lot that my marriage is my biggest achievement. How long have you been married?
17 years.
So 17. Colby and I have been together for 16, married for 14. But it's like I've heard people say before like the first year of marriage was hard. And I always think in my head, like, Buckle up, girls. Like the first year, like depending on what your circumstances are, obviously, and what's been thrown your way that first year, it's kind of out of your control.
Mhm.
But in a lot of ways, it's like that first year, it's like honeymoon stage, right? Depending on if you have kids and stuff like that, because that definitely changes. But definitely huge achievement just to be able to share a life with somebody and raise children
Mhm.
with somebody.
Mhm.
And the eating disorder, I would love for you to come back on and us talk more about that because that doesn't go away.
I would love to
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be
help
a
some
really good
people,
one.
hopefully.
Well, thanks for coming, Cersei.
Thank you
I
so much for
enjoyed
having me.
this
This was
so
fun.
much. All right. Thanks for coming and getting hyped with us and be kind to yourselves today and every day.